At its height, Rome ruled an empire stretching from the rainy hills of northern Britain to the deserts of Egypt, encompassing perhaps 60 to 70 million people. And somehow, without electricity, engines, or instant communication, Rome collected taxes, moved armies across continents, supplied enormous cities, and connected economies thousands of kilometers apart. Military conquest explains how Rome acquired an empire. It doesn't fully explain how the Romans inherited roads, ports, and trade networks from the civilizations that came before them, but they expanded and integrated them on an extraordinary scale. Eventually, major roads connected much of the empire. The military could move quickly between strategic locations. Officials and messages traveled through an imperial communications network. Ports connected Mediterranean cities, while merchant ships carried grain, wine, olive oil, ceramics, metals, and countless other goods across the Roman world. And this produced something incredibly powerful: connectivity. A merchant in one province wasn't limited entirely to the economy immediately around him. He was participating in a commercial world stretching across the Mediterranean and beyond. Rome wasn't simply accumulating territory. It was integrating territory into a network. But connecting an empire creates another problem. How do you govern communities separated by thousands of kilometers, speaking different languages and following different traditions? Rome's answer was not to make everyone Roman overnight. In fact, much of Rome's success came from doing the opposite. Local customs and institutions often survived Roman conquest. But above them sat an expanding framework of Roman government, taxation, law, coinage, infrastructure, and military power. Think about what this did economically. A coin minted in one part of the empire could circulate far from where it was produced. Contracts could operate within increasingly familiar legal frameworks. Ports and roads reduced the friction of moving goods. The Romans had stumbled onto one of the fundamental principles of scale: standardize what must be standardized, and leave the rest alone. But perhaps Rome's most sophisticated tool wasn't a road or a legion. It was incentive. Rome certainly ruled through violence. Rebellions could be suppressed with extraordinary brutality. But violence alone cannot explain centuries of imperial rule. Rome also gave powerful local families reasons to participate in the Roman system. Local elites could gain wealth, political status, and eventually positions within the imperial hierarchy. And Roman citizenship, which had once belonged to a relatively small group, was gradually extended to more and more people until, in 212 AD, Emperor Caracalla granted citizenship to nearly all free inhabitants of the empire. This was one of Rome's great strengths. It could turn outsiders into stakeholders. A conquered population did not necessarily remain permanently outside the system. Over generations, many could become part of it. But there's a paradox hidden inside Rome's success. The larger the empire became, the more expensive and complicated that system became to maintain. Thousands of kilometers of frontier had to be defended. Armies had to be paid. Political struggles repeatedly destabilized the imperial government. Currency was debased during periods of crisis. Tax burdens changed. Civil wars consumed resources. And increasingly, emperors weren't asking, "How do we expand?" They were asking, "How do we hold this together?" Rome had reached a problem that almost every great organization eventually encounters. Growth creates power, but growth also creates complexity. The Western Roman Empire ultimately disappeared in the 5th century, but reducing its collapse to a single cause misses the point. Rome survived for centuries precisely because it was extraordinarily good at adapting, integrating, and organizing. Its greatest achievement may not have been conquest at all. It was building a system capable of turning conquest into something durable. And perhaps that's the real lesson Rome leaves behind. Power can create an empire. Systems can sustain one. But eventually, every system has to confront the complexity created by its own success.